It's raining, you're outside, you're wet. You have two options. Option 1, go inside. Option 2, die. Because that's actually what those two options are when you remove the building from the first one. No house, no car, no umbrella, no waterproof jacket with the little logo that cost you $200. Just you, rain, and the biological reality that a wet human being loses heat from their body 25 times faster than a dry one, 25 times. You didn't choose that number. Evolution built it in, forgot to include weather protection, and then just left. Good luck. Figure it out. And here's the thing. Ancient humans were not, as movies would have you believe, so tough and leathery and spiritually connected to nature that rain was just a vibe for them. Rain was a problem. A serious, potentially fatal, embarrassingly solvable-looking problem that was in practice extremely difficult to actually solve with nothing but animal carcasses, rocks, and the cognitive horsepower that would one day put us on the moon but was, in the moment, mostly focused on not being wet and cold at the same time. This is the story of every creative solution they came up with anyway. And here's the part that should bother you. The outdoor clothing industry in the 20th century quietly patented almost every single one of those solutions and sold them back to you as innovation. We'll get there. First, let's talk about why rain was actively trying to kill you. If you've ever complained about being rained on walking from a car park to a restaurant, this video will fix that permanently. Stay. The problem isn't rain hitting you. It's what happens to your body's temperature regulation when wet fabric touches your skin. Dry animal hide, the standard clothing material for most of human prehistory, is an impressive insulator. Thick, layered, traps warm air against the body. Works. But take that same hide, soak it through, and it does the exact opposite. Instead of trapping air, it sits against your skin, conducting heat directly away from your body into the cold fabric surrounding it. The insulation is gone. The warmth is gone. What's left is a garment that is now actively accelerating your hypothermia faster than if you'd just been standing there naked. A 2025 study published in the EXARC journal titled Neanderthals in the Rain, which used experimental analysis of Neanderthal period clothing techniques, confirmed what physiology already knew. Wet clothing loses its insulative properties entirely, and Neanderthals, despite being more biologically cold adapted than us, with their stockier bodies and higher metabolic baselines, were just as vulnerable to cold, wet conditions as anyone wearing soaked hide in a rainstorm today. This was not a minor inconvenience. A Neanderthal caught in prolonged wet cold with inadequate protection would progress from shivering to confusion to inability to move to death at the same pace any unprepared human would today. The biology doesn't care how tough your jawline is. So, what do? You're Paleolithic. It's raining. Your clothes are making things worse. Your fire, which was your backup plan for staying warm, is also now wet. What is the actual creative solution here? First problem first, the clothing itself. The issue is not waterproofing leather in a perfect Gore-Tex membrane sense. The issue is making the outside of the hide repel water long enough that the water never reaches the inside layer against your skin. And the solution that humans on literally every continent independently arrived at is almost offensively biological. Animal brains, specifically the fat content inside them. Every large mammal you kill has roughly enough brain matter, about 3 pounds give or take, to tan its own hide. This is not a coincidence or a folk saying. It is biochemistry. The brains of mammals contain high concentrations of lecithin, a natural emulsifying lipid that, when worked into a wet hide through repeated stretching and manipulation, penetrates into the collagen fibers and bonds with them at a molecular level, making the fibers hydrophobic, water-repelling. You kill a deer, you eat the deer, you save the brain. You mix the brain with fat and water. You work that mixture into the hide while it's still damp, stretching it repeatedly, until the lecithin has fully penetrated. You have created, from a deer and its own head, a piece of leather that will shed light rain and hold its flexibility through repeated wet-dry cycles. The Zulus of southern Africa used this method. The Chukchi of eastern Russia used this method. North American plains peoples used this method. Indigenous communities in South America used it. In Japan, traditional accounts describe it. Nomadic peoples across Central Asia used it. The Scandinavian Sami used it. Zero communication between these groups. Same discovery, same chemistry, same answer. Then you smoke it. You suspend the brain-tanned hide over a fire in a small enclosed space, ideally a tent-like structure built around the fire specifically for this purpose, and let the phenolic compounds in the smoke bond to the surface of the leather. Phenol, an active tanning agent present in wood smoke, adds a second layer of water resistance and, as a side effect, Antimicrobial protection. The hide becomes darker from the smoke, stiffer on the outer surface, and significantly more water-resistant than it was after the brain tanning alone. The combination, brain fat inside the fiber, smoke compounds on the surface, creates the most water-resistant leather achievable without synthetic chemistry. The outdoor gear industry in the 20th century called this DWR, durable water repellent treatment, a chemical spray applied to the outside of Gore-Tex fabrics to shed water off the surface. It wears off after a few years, and you're supposed to buy more and reapply it. Ancient hunters did this to every garment they made. They called it Tuesday. Comment DWR Tuesday below if this is making you feel things about your jacket. But waterproof clothing only solves part of the rain problem, because you still need to be somewhere. And somewhere in the Upper Paleolithic, when the rains came, required some genuinely creative thinking about what the word shelter actually meant when you had no permanent structure, no manufactured materials, and a landscape that was actively flooding, destabilizing, and generating hypothermia-level cold wind on top of the rain. Rock shelters were the premium real estate. A natural limestone overhang, undercutting from a cliff face, creates a protected space below it that stays dry while rain pours at the open edge. Archaeologist Brian Fagan's analysis of Upper Paleolithic evidence, described in detail in his work on Ice Age human survival, documents that these communities made extensive modifications to their rock shelters to maximize exactly this weather protection. They draped large processed hides from the overhangs to block wind and rain blowing in at angles. They built internal tent-like structures inside the rock shelter, wooden poles lashed together, covered with sewn hides, creating a warm, dry interior space within the already protected overhang. Multiple layers of protection. All of this arranged around a hearth positioned to reflect heat off the rock walls. The warmth stayed in, the rain stayed out. The system worked because it used the available geometry of the landscape and available material of the hunt simultaneously to solve a problem that a building would solve later. But here's what happens when there's no rock overhang. When you're on open ground and it starts raining, and there is no cliff, no overhang, no cave entrance, no natural protection of any kind. What do you build from nothing? If you're living in Eastern Europe or Siberia approximately 28,000 years ago, the answer is a house made of mammoth bones. Several sites in Siberia and Ukraine, including Mezhirich, Mezin, and Dobranichevka, have yielded the remains of circular structures 4 to 6 meters in diameter, built from the skulls, jawbones, long bones, and tusks of mammoths. The tusks formed arches. The skulls and thigh bones formed the walls and base. The whole structure was covered with sewn mammoth hides, waterproofed, anchored against wind. Multiple hearths inside, capacity for several families. The oldest of these structures at Mezhirich in modern Ukraine dates to approximately 15,000 years ago. And the most recent analysis by Olga Soffer of the University of Illinois suggests that constructing one required approximately 60 mammoth individuals worth of bones, meaning these communities had been collecting and storing building materials across multiple hunting seasons, deliberately planning a construction project. In sub-zero, rain and snow conditions, on open steppe with no timber, with no manufacturing, with no tools except stone and bone and sinew, they engineered a weatherproof structure from the literal skeleton of the largest animal they hunted. A mammoth bone house is insane to think about. Not because it's primitive, because it's not. It is a solution that required planning, community coordination, material storage, engineering for load-bearing capacity, waterproofing technology, and the foresight to see a pile of bones as the raw material for something that would keep a family dry all winter. That is not instinct. That is not accidental. That is a design process. Which brings us to the fire problem. Because here's what nobody at REI will tell you when they sell you waterproof matches. The challenge of maintaining fire in wet conditions is one of the oldest, most consistently solved engineering problems in human history, and the solutions are better than synthetic fire starters in at least one significant way. Birch bark, specifically the outer bark of the paper birch tree, which contains high concentrations of betulin, a water-insoluble triterpenoid compound that repels moisture and is highly flammable even when wet. Ancient communities in northern Europe and Asia carried processed rolls of birch bark as reliable fire-starting material that would catch even in damp conditions when other tinder failed. Neanderthals at sites across Europe were processing birch bark for adhesive purposes. The same betulin-rich extraction process produces a tar that works as a binding agent. The overlap between waterproof fire-starting material and adhesive manufacture from the same tree, using the same process in the same communities, during rain events when fire maintenance was most critical, is not coincidental. It's efficient, one material, multiple wet weather applications. And now for the thing that has been sitting in this video since the opening, and is honestly the reason the outdoor clothing industry would prefer you not watch it. In 1969's, Bob Gore is alone in a lab in October. Frustrated, he's been trying to slowly stretch heated rods of polytetrafluoroethylene, PTFE, basically Teflon, for months without success. In a moment of pure frustration, he grabs a rod and yanks it as hard as he can. It stretches 800%. The result, expanded PTFE, known as Gore-Tex, is a membrane with 9 billion microscopic pores per square inch, each one too small for liquid water to pass through, but large enough for water vapor to escape. Waterproof, breathable, patent US 3,953,566, filed in 1976. The outdoor industry calls it a revolution. First marmot sleeping bag in 1976. First jackets in the late 1970s. Technical layering system, moisture-wicking base layer against the skin. Insulating mid-layer, waterproof outer shell, formalized in outdoor gear marketing through the 1980s, and sold as the product of modern materials science. Ancient hunters wore moisture-wicking inner layers of thin, soft, scraped hide against the skin, mid-layers of thicker, fur-facing inward insulating hide for warmth, outer layers of brain-tanned, smoke-treated, water-repelling hide as the shell. They arrived at this exact system, independently, without any laboratory, without any polymer chemistry, without any marketing department, through the very direct experimental process of trying things in the rain and observing what kept them alive. The outdoor industry patented waterproof breathable layering in the late 1970s. Ancient humans field-tested the same architecture 20,000 years earlier and confirmed it worked by the only metric that mattered. They survived. Bob Gore discovered his solution through a frustrated yank on a lab bench. A Paleolithic craftsperson discovered brain tanning through a more gradual and considerably messier process involving considerably more brain. Both were solving the same problem. Only one of them got a patent for it, so next time you pay $200 for a jacket because it has a specific logo on it. Remember that the entire engineering principle underneath that logo was figured out by someone sitting in the rain 20,000 years ago, elbow deep in deer brain, refusing to let the weather win. They were correct. The weather didn't win. Wit just made them better at everything, which is either very inspiring or very exhausting as a survival strategy. And honestly, same. What would you have invented first? The waterproofing, the shelter, or the fire and rain solution? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more moments where the oldest answer turns out to be the right one, you know exactly what to do.